Sometimes in life, you meet people with extraordinary jobs, and sometimes those people are on Instagram. That's how I met my next guest. She's the daughter of a nuclear physicist and a language teacher, and graduated from a high school for gifted students. While at university, she discovered her life's calling when she read an essay written by a brothel manager. She sent in her application and at the ripe age of 22 began her career in a very unique sector of people management. Today, we are going to have a conversational cocktail of the psychological and the sexual as we discuss brothel life and what connects, separates, and drives us. Academic and ambitious, making CRM sexy, soon to be PhD, Catherine de Noire. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed on the PhD.
Yeah, I need this because I'm like a little bit behind. It's very hard to handle everything, like social media, my full-time job, and then like studying. I'm still trying to learn that everything doesn't need to be like 100% and every time all the like on the time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you know what? It's so funny that you bring that up because that's actually one of the first thoughts that I had when I was putting myself in your shoes of your life. I was thinking of what it was like for me going from my 20s to my 30s because it's such a weird decade, right? You could be the exact same age as someone else and have nothing in common with them because of the season of your life is very different. So I wanted to ask you, what was that like for you being 22 and having a job that, although in sex work, is a professional, real job? You're a real manager of lots of people while your friends were still playing beer pong.
It was definitely weird. I mean, every time when the lectures were finished, all of my classmates, they went for a beer, they went for a party, and I was like, yeah, guys, I need to go to manage a brothel. They didn't need to worry about like that many things because they were just studying and partying. So it was definitely weird for me because like at some point we started to live in like different realities, and I definitely needed to grow up much more faster than they did because at 22 I was responsible for not only the employees but also for the sex workers that works with us. So and then like I didn't have any experience with working in managerial positions, so I needed to learn everything very quickly and I needed to learn that responsibility. Now I'm 31 and I've been in this position for 9 years, and some of my classmates like they are in their first jobs right now, so they are having the first experiences, and like I already have quite a lot of years in this job.
Yeah, I remember when I was in my early 20s, I had taken a sales position and I learned so much in that position. But much of everything that I learned, though, was thanks to the older female salespeople that I had, that they taught me. I could say, hey, this happened. What would you say? How would you handle that? I wanted to ask you if the older sex workers that are in your brothel have taught you anything about human connection.
I think not only the sex workers but also the people that are the visitors of the brothel. Over those years I've met so many interesting like human stories. And so when I was growing up, I kind of had the idea that relationships and life is something that is like linear and follows one path. And then I saw so many interesting and like different life stories and different ways how the life can unfold. I'm definitely more understand different ways how people want to live, because the psychology likes to teach about what is normal, what is not normal, like the way how we supposed to be, what is pathological and those kind of stuff. And then you go to real life and you hear all the stories and you kind of realize the life is not linear, and the relationships and sex life and intimacy is something that develops over time. And this was something that I kind of missed in psychology. I earned my bachelor and then I took a gap year, and I was like, I don't want to continue with studying psychology because it kind of doesn't make sense anymore for me. So then after the gap year, I decided that I will go for sociology. So I actually graduated from sociology and organizational psychology, like masters both. But when I saw how playful life and sexuality and intimacy can be, I was like, I don't want to be part of the psychological world that tells people this is not normal. You shouldn't be living like that.
So are you saying that you, prior to working at the brothel, had maybe a little bit of a judgmental outlook on the nature of sexuality and human behavior?
I wouldn't say I was judgmental. I mean, before that, I used to go to swingers party. I mean, I was always very open about my sexual life and relationships, but like I didn't see no one around me who would live differently because I was kind of young. All of my friends, they had some sort of linear relationships. Then I came to Brothel and I started to speak with the sex workers and also sometimes the clients. And I kind of realized not everybody wants to live that like linear, boring life, if I can say it like that. And I was like, I believe I'm a good fit in here.
Can we unpack what linear means in this context? Because if I were to take a stab at it, I would say the linear looks like you meet, you go on your first date, you date for a little while, you become monogamous to each other, you are engaged, you're married, and then you're married and you're monogamous.
And then you need to have a house, those kind of stuff. And then the kids needs to go to the really good college, those kind of stuff.
So, what are you seeing that's different than that, that gave you that aha moment?
I'm the person who really likes to have the data. So when I heard the first sex worker stories, I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I kept hearing more. And I was like, okay, like not everybody live the linear life. And it was something that I kind of realized like over the time. Because like I gathered more data.
You're doing research at the brothel. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Can you give an example of a non-linear relationship that stands out to you in your memory?
So we had one girl and she was working with us for many years. And I think she was in her 40s. She was married, but the sex aspect of that relationship was like long gone. But they decided to stay together because they really loved each other. And she decided that she wants to be a sex worker. So she was working with us a few years. So we were talking with her quite a lot about her family and her husband. And she was like, my husband, he's not into sex. He wouldn't never go to brothel. And then one night, his friends and the husband and his friends, they decided to come to our place. And he saw her there. We all expected a huge scene, like a lot of shouting and everything. And she managed to close the door, but it was too late. So he already saw her. She saw him. So she kind of led him into her room. And like after several hours, they left. And I didn't see her for like few months after this happened. And then one day she appeared again in the club. And so I was like, hey, how are you? What happened? I was trying not to be super nosy, but I was curious. And she was like, yeah, well, me and my husband, we had a huge fight, but then we kind of talk talk through it and we spoke about our relationship, our sexuality, our sex life basically. And he kind of admitted that he finds it super hot that I'm a sex worker. And now he's coming to see me as my client. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. And she was like, yeah, it works perfectly for us. So this is like one of the things that I don't think that you see in like normal type of relationships.
Yeah,
I
air
like the
quotes, normal.
variety and the creativity of people, like how they actually do the relationships. So yeah, I guess like this is one of the examples.
That's a great example because you're right. In a linear situation, that couple would have gotten divorced. Sometimes we think, oh, nonlinear relationships mean that they end, but I think ending is kind of a part of the linear path, at least in the way that we normally see, which is like divorce or infidelity, and then there's a separation. So, yeah, I love that you use the word creativity because you don't often think of that as the resource for a solution, especially not for a conflict potentially that bad, but it actually is. So kudos to both of them for being honest with each other. I have another question about connection on behalf of the sex workers because I've heard you say in other interviews that you have a worker there in her 50s or so. She's a little overweight. She doesn't usually wear makeup. She's not offering particularly kinky services, and yet she's one of your highest paid workers, making around 50,000 euros a month, which is about 57,000 USD. Is she just that good in bed, or is this like a true human connection magic happening?
She's just like a really good person. And I know this may sound weird because when people think about like sex work, they usually picture this gorgeous Victoria's Secret supermodel look. And yes, like some of the girls, they look like this, but the look is not everything. The most important thing that you have is your personality. So when people feel good with you and they want to spend time with you, when you like know how to deal with people, how to communicate with them, this is what sells. And on top of that, like she has amazing sales skills. She knows how to sell, so that definitely helps. But she's not pushy, she's not arrogant. You can see that she wants to be there with you while she knows how to maintain the boundaries, which is super important in this work. And I always tell the girls, like, you need to make sure that nobody will cross your boundaries because it's not worth it.
That's so interesting. What about the more colorful varieties of sex that some of your workers offer? Would you consider that connection?
Definitely, because even though the service they provide is not like sexual on the first sight, so a lot of the people they imagine that the customers just visit a brothel because they want to have sex. But most of the time it's not just about sex. And sometimes it's not like even related to sex in a way like how we think of sex. Some of the customers they are just really into role play that doesn't even involve sex. We had a customer and he came in and he wanted to play a plumber, so he put on his plumber dress, and the sex worker she was ready to play this like desperate housewife type of scenario, so she kind of let him to play. And then he went to the bathroom and then he started to repairing sink, the bathroom, the shower, and this took several hours and he paid a lot of money for this. So she was waiting there and she was like, okay, so maybe he will fix that and then we will start to do something. And then he moved to another thing and start to repair that. After several hours, she was just sitting there and then he finished with the whole bathroom. Then he put on his normal clothes and he was like, this was amazing, thank you. And he left. That was
I
all.
am
That
so
like that
confused.
was all he wanted to do, just to play a plumber, to actually finish one of our bathrooms, and then he just went home. He paid a lot of money for this. So a lot of the people they are coming in and they have this very particular fantasy that has something like for them it's kind of sexual, but for us it's this has nothing to do with sex or intimacy, but for them it can be a really intimate experience.
Okay, that makes me think that maybe his thing, the need that he was trying to fill was feeling helpful. Maybe where he worked and where he lived, he didn't feel like he could fix anything, so he needed to go somewhere to
Maybe.
fix things. I mean, obviously he's a plumber in real life if he's like fixing your sink.
I don't know. I have no idea.
That is so bizarre. What are some of the more colorful varieties of services that your workers offer?
We as a club, we never tell the sex workers what they should do. So every sex worker can decide what she wants to do, with whom, and for how much. So it kind of depends, like how she feels that day, because some of the girls, they are really into this and into that, but sometimes they're like, yeah, I just don't feel like doing anything BDSM today, so I will just offer the standard service, or maybe I will just offer some massages. It's always up to the girls.
Then how does that work when prospective clients come through the door? How are they making these requests and negotiations with the workers if there's no standardized menu?
Just to give you like an overview, like how it works with us. So new workers, we rent them a room, and if she wants to work, she rent that room, and she paid the price for the room, which is like 200 euros for 1 day. And that's it. She doesn't pay like any percentages to us. There are like no fees. She just pays us the rent, and that's it. And she stays in the room, or like in front of the room, and the customers, they are walking past them, and if he sees that there is somebody who he fancies, he will just start to speak with her. And so the negotiation is always between the customer and the workers. So he needs to speak with her to see if their expectations and what she wants to do, if it matches. And if they agree that yes, then she will let him into that room, and then the fun starts.
So even the prices, if the worker perceives that the prospective client might have more money,
Yeah, she will go up with
or
a, yeah. It
ah,
will be more
okay,
pricey,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, does it also happen that like the worker says, "I'll give you a blowjob," and then they say, "But if you give me more money, I'll give you a blowjob and I'll wear this crazy outfit,
Mhm.
super, BDSM outfit." Like, do they have like their standard upsells that they do?
Of course. Of course. But you need to phrase it in a clever way, because you can't be like, okay, and I will do this and this and this for that much. So like you need to be like super skilled in like sales techniques, I guess. So some of them, they are like really good. I mean, they will sell you everything, and it's going to be super costly for you. But at the end you will be happy, but you will pay a lot of money. And some of the girls, they like, no, just give me like 100 euros and like just finish as quickly as possible, because like I don't want to have any sorts of conversation with you, and that's it. So some of them, yeah,
Interesting.
so like some of them, they go for like quantity. So they want to have 20 customers a day, and they are okay with that. And some of the girls, they go with more quality. So they can have one customer, but they will earn like 2,000 euros from him.
Not everyone, though, leaves happy at the end of the day. You had one guy, I remember, that continued to come back at the cost of his house. Tell us about that.
He kinda fell in love with one of the workers. First, he came once a week, then it was like twice a week, then third times a week. And at some point, she was like, look, but you are my client. This is not a relationship. Then he started to buy her some very expensive gifts. He took her to some trips. And all the time she was telling him, and we kind of knew this is happening. So at some point we were like, did you tell him that this is not the relationship? It's a relationship, but it's professional relationship. And she was like, yeah, well, I told him many times, and he told me it's okay for him. So at some point he ran out of the money, and he decided to sell his house. And he decided to give all the money to this girl. And that's it. So now he's homeless. And yeah, so that's what happened. And
Oh,
it's
that's
it's really
so
crazy.
sad.
It's really crazy. But at the same time, I mean, he knew exactly that this is type of relationship, that it's more business or professional. Because like she told him so many times, And also, like, he was adult. So when somebody wants to sell his house, I mean, he or she will do it no matter what. But this was definitely one of the moments when I was like, this is crazy.
Was it clear that that wasn't a real relationship? Because I think our chemicals in our brain get confused when we do have sex, right? And that speaks to the complicated nature of romantic connection because our caveman selves are meant to connect at least for the time that the child that is conceived from that connection grows to be like 3 or 4, right? And then everyone can move on. I mean, I'm talking like caveman stuff, right? So I could see where, on the one hand, some people are maybe more adapted to this sort of, what did you call it? Creative relationships. And then some people maybe would have a hard time with that, that maybe that part of their nature just doesn't align with visiting a whorehouse.
I don't know. I mean, I feel super sorry for the guy. It's crazy that he's homeless, but this is kind of approach that I have to like all human behaviors. We are all adults and we are responsible for our own choices and decisions. And even though I might think it's absolutely crazy and stupid, sometimes I'm not in the position of telling anyone, especially when nobody asked. So I'm trying not to interfere unless I'm asked. Yeah, so like this is the same like with some of the workers. Once saw a worker and she was working in this business for 12 years and she decided that like her boyfriend will be the one who will be handling all the money. So they bought a few apartments, a house, they bought a restaurant, and then after 12 years he decided that he doesn't want to be with her anymore, but all the money were on his name. And when I heard this for the first time, I was like, look, I don't think it's good that your money is being handled by somebody else. These are your money, you earn them, so you should have them in your bank account. And then I was the bad one because I didn't trust their love, I didn't trust their relationship, I didn't trust her boyfriend. And I was like, no, look, I wish you all the best, but I'm just telling you, it's your money. Just make sure that if something happens, and I don't wish anything bad to happen, but please make sure that money are still yours. And she's like, yeah, well, he will never, ever, ever leave me. We are just like end game. Like, and then he left after 12 years. And all she had at that moment when he left was 2,000 euros. All the apartments gone, house gone, cars gone, restaurant gone. I was like, this is crazy.
You know what I just realized is a part of my role as an interviewer is I'm thinking about just what you're saying and I'm being present as you, Catherine, me, Meredith. But I'm also thinking about the audience and what would their reaction be if they were physically here with us right now?
Mhm.
What questions would they be asking? And I just had that moment just then where I could, if here, if you will, an audience member thinking, you see, this is why we can't have brothels. This is the moral decay of society. You've got this guy selling his house, you've got this woman being taken advantage of. And then just now it flipped and I could hear someone else point out that these things actually happen not in brothels also. How many times have you heard of a woman whose all her money is being controlled by her husband or a boyfriend? How many times have you heard about like an older man giving his inheritance away to some young sugar mom, like situation? So I guess that sort of leads me to what some people would call that moral slide because like you yourself, I heard you said you're a swinger or you have been to swinger parties, and some would consider that akin to working at a strip club and being like, "Oh, I'm just a waitress." And then before you know it, you're stripping or whatever. Have you thought any about the morality of sex work?
Hmm. You mean like from customer point of view, if they should be visiting a brothel, or from the like workers' point of view, if it's actually ethical what they do?
No, actually, from a societal point of view,
Uh-huh.
because of your background studying psychology and sociology, and because of your PhD research of sex work and society and sex work management.
Hmm.
I'm wondering from a big picture view, if considering the morality of sex work on society is something that's kind of entered your thought process at all.
Well, it's actually kind of funny because this discussion whether sex work should be legal, it's been going on for ages, but so does the sex work. As a human species, we've done sex work like for most of our history. But what changes is the context, like how we as a society view sexuality in like different historical periods. Some of the periods of our like human history, the brothels were actually like a normal part of everyday life. And still, after so many years, we still have discussions like whether we should criminalize it or not. And if we go back to like very recent history and we look like what happens every time when something is illegal, for example, with alcohol in America, like the prohibition, like if you make something illegal, that doesn't mean that it will disappear. It will only learn how to hide better. Like dodgy people will go to that industry because they are fine with breaking the law. There will be nobody who can overlook the whole industry. And this is what makes sex work dangerous. You know what is funny? Like most of the time, like politicians are the clients of the sex workers. So like I'm all like when I hear the politicians saying, yeah, the sex work, it shouldn't be here, I'm like, you are their clients. I mean, what the fuck? So when I hear the politicians saying sex work should be illegal, I'm like, it will not solve the problem. And you need to make it legal so the people in the industry and also their clients can be protected. For example, the sex workers will be able to open a bank accounts, they will be able to have any state pension, those kind of stuff. But if you will force people in the sex industry to live under the radar, that's just not good for anyone.
What benefits do you think sex work brings to society?
So let me just give you like a few examples. So we have quite a lot of younger guys coming in, and they are like, I'm probably not good at anything sexual. And they are actually just coming to learn something about sex, which I think it's amazing because like you get the opportunity to actually ask, I think, the professional in this, and she will give you like some tips and tricks, and you don't need to be scared. We have few guys, and this is actually quite interesting, and they were like leaning into like incel type of like involuntary celibate type of the thinking.
Let me just explain that for my listeners who maybe aren't familiar with that. Incel, in the way that you're describing, isn't just people who have not been able to get laid. This is like an underground community of people who have an intense propensity towards violence, and they perceive that their unhappiness and their lot in life is due to like feminism and like the modern woman. It's very like female centered hatred and bitterness, and they have been known to do acts of violence. So just so people, I just wanted to lay that background. So incels, you've had people that maybe were leaning towards
So
that.
we had a definitely few people, and this is what the workers told me. And they were like, this person came in and he was like, yeah, I'm miserable, but not because of my life, but because of you, because all the girls in the life in the world. And those kind of customers started to come to us like on a regular basis. And I'm not saying like we are a miracle place, but from what I heard from the girls, like those kind of people, I kind of realized like women are not so evil as they thought. We have quite a lot of guys who are widowed. So for them, the brothel kind of functions also like the place where they can not have just the sex, but also some sort of like a human contact that they were used to have, like to really be heard. And also, we have a guys and they have partners and they are coming in and they don't want to have sex. They just want to feel that the human connection. And this is what a lot of girls tell me that sometimes they don't feel like a sex workers, but they feel like a therapist because a lot of the guys they are coming in and they just want to be heard and they just want to feel that like human connection. And then we have like guys and they just want to try something that their partner might think it's weird, so they come to us. I believe we as a place, like our specific brothel, kind of caters all those needs. So I don't think like the brothel has only the place in society because it fulfills the sexual needs of guys, but I believe that it fulfills like not just the sexual needs, but also like emotional.
There's a lot more communication than I would have guessed. Tell me about the miscommunication mishap between the Monday guy and the Friday lady.
So once we had a worker and she was with us for quite many years as well. And she was working all the time, just Monday shifts. And then we had one customer and he always came just on Fridays. And the point is, those two people, they were married to each other, but they didn't know that the other one is also being involved with our brothel. And it was kind of funny because, like, few times she mentioned that maybe I should start to come here for Friday shifts because, like, Fridays are usually the shift when there is like a huge volume of the customers. So, like, you will probably make like more money. Whereas, like, the Mondays, they are like usually quiet. And we always thought, like, no, stick with the Mondays. It's the best for you. Fridays, they are crazy, a lot of drunk people. You will not like it. So at some point, he was like, well, maybe, because he was like really scared that somebody will see him and tell this to his wife. And he was like, listen, maybe I should start coming here on like Mondays, Tuesdays, like those kind of days when there is like not too many people, because somebody might see me during Fridays because there is like such a big amount of people. And we were like, no, stay for Fridays because there is a lot of people, so you will get easily lost in the crowd. It's okay, just stay with the Fridays. And unfortunately, there is no ending of that story. They never met each other in the club. And I remember, like, all of the sudden, like, he stopped to coming to our club, and then, like, she stopped to coming to our club as well. So to this day, I have no idea what happened there. Maybe they found a different club. Maybe one of them found out. Maybe they never did. I have no idea. But I just think it's funny because, like, sometimes the person who's supposed to be like our closest one, we don't know him or her at all.
Wow, that is crazy. That's like the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where they're both spies
Oh,
and they don't
yeah.
communicate to each other. Unlike your couple, they
Yeah.
did find out at the end and they teamed up. But it's an interesting reminder about how important openness and communication is because you could end up living separate lives under the same roof. What's your experience like as a female brothel manager that might be different than a male brothel manager?
It's definitely different when it comes to workers and also to the customers. So sometimes the customers, they kind of think that I'm one of the workers. So when there is a situation when the girl pressed the alarm button and I need to go there as a manager to solve the situation. And when I open the door, the customers are like, why you are here? I mean, are you going to suck my dick or what? And I'm like, no, I'm actually the manager. I'm here to help the situation. And sometimes they are really confused and like they kind of don't respect me because they kind of imagine that there would be like one big, huge guy with like golden chains. And then like, I am there and I'm being nice to them. So This is definitely one of the things. And the second thing is that also the girls, they are like kind of surprised because most of the managers here in Europe, they are guys. So when they see a girl being a manager, they are like, ooh, okay, this is new. But I think it kind of helps because the trust between girls, I think it's like built a little bit faster because like they don't expect me to do anything creepy to them. So they kind of view me as like an older sister sometimes. Sometimes they perceived me as their competition, which was like, so we needed to build that trust and now it's okay. I think that it definitely helps being a girl in this position because I think that you are like much more receptive to what might be going on sometimes. And I know that I can be like such a bitch when I'm on my period, and like I completely understand that. I'm not saying like the guys in our company, they are bad managers. I believe that they are absolutely great managers. But I believe being a girl in this position kind of helps.
Yeah, because you're also probably very attuned, as are the workers, to reading people. You said they're very good salespeople. Part of being a good salesperson and also part of being safe is being able to trust your instincts, read people's body language, their facial expressions.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I believe that just this helps.
We've talked a lot about the good things that can come from sex work. You're researching sex work for your PhD. If you had your way, what will you make better, safer, more profitable, more fair? What's on your list?
Definitely the social stigma. And I know it's not a sexy topic, but often when the girls regret they do this work, they don't regret it because they think it's bad or it has like a bad influence on them. But most of the time they are like, I'm just so tired of lying to my family, of lying to all of my people that I love, because I can't tell them what I do. Because they would probably not handle it and they would perceive me as completely different person. Some of them they really like what they do, but like they just can't tell this to almost no one. And this is something that is just crazy and it gives you a lot of self-doubt because at one point like you are doing something that you want to do, but at the same time like you can't tell this nobody, and you're like you need to hide, you need to lie, you need to think of all the crazy stories, like what you do, where does this money come from. And this is incredibly tiring. And it's not just because of their closest one, but also when you want to open a bank account and they ask you what you do, and you tell them, oh, I'm a sex worker. You get like side eyes, you get judged. I heard girls in therapy and they were like, I didn't even want to tell this to my therapist because she looked like a person who judged me. So this is like one of the things that I really hate about society because most of us, we are sexual people and we do sex. So that's not illegal. But once the money are involved, we all get like really crazy about this. And if you think about it, like we as a people, like we do like such a big variety of work. So you can be a nanny, you can literally raise somebody else's kid. You can do X, Y, Z and take money for it, and it's okay. But then there is this one thing, and that it's sex. And we can just get crazy over it.
I heard one sex worker who is from New Zealand. She does OnlyFans, Layla Kelly. I went down a rabbit trail of researching her and learned that she had to try, I think, 3 times to get a mortgage because when she said, oh, I'm a sex worker, they wouldn't even process her application. That's not something I would have expected.
Yeah, and it's actually quite typical. Like, even though you do everything legally, you still need to be in this like gray area because if you want to open a bank account, sometimes they ask you as a foreigner, so what do you do here in this country? And when the girls say, okay, I'm a sex worker, and they're like, no,
Mm.
we need you to provide us like employer contract or something, which is like something that you don't need to open a bank account. But they are still trying to find a way to make it like really uncomfortable for them. So this is actually one of the reasons why the girls like don't want to go into this official sector, let's say. So they would rather have all the money in a cash in their houses than to go to the bank.
Interesting. Huh. What about relationships? How has being in this industry affected your personal relationships, whether with your family? I'm sure people would want to know how you navigate romantic relationships because you have an OnlyFans, you shared your swinger, you're a manager at a brothel. This is a huge chunk of your life. There's lots of categories that fit into this sex bucket for you. What does that feel like for you when you are on a first date?
So it's been like a few years since I haven't dated, but I recently decided to get back to dating, and like I have actually no idea how to do it. So it's like
I appreciate your honesty.
I have no idea, like, should I go to Tinder or something? I mean, I have no idea. So I'm still like trying to figure this out. Navigating relationship was definitely hard for me when I started to work in this industry because before that, I used to date people outside of the industry and they didn't quite understand the industry and my work. So I heard several times from a guy, I don't think that you should be working there anymore because there's like so many guys around you and I don't feel good when you are in a brothel. I mean, I manage the place.
Yeah.
So like the people can get super jealous. So at some point I was like, probably I would just like date people inside of the industry because it makes things easier because we share the same reality. But like now I decided to get back to dating and like I have no idea what to do. If you have any tips for me, I don't know. I mean, I think I will be like super awkward at the dates because I don't know how to do that.
Oh man, and I'm not a good person to ask because I've been married for a while. So yeah,
Okay.
and I found my husband on accident, and it just like it was just a happy accident, and it worked out. And we often marvel at how lucky we got
Okay.
because there's so many areas in life where you can be so different in travel, in sexuality, in communication, in money, in work styles, in food. Like, I would be so annoyed to be with a man who only wants plain fast food. I need to be with someone who is adventurous in their cuisine because that's part of travel also. So yeah, I got lucky. So maybe our audience can help you with that. I have one more question on the potential downsides of sex work before we wrap up our conversation. And it's an important one. So please forgive this hard transition from us talking about the fun of your sex life and your romantic life to this one. So forgive me. But I can't not ask about human trafficking because so much of sex work in the underground, and I think sometimes even in situations that look like they're maybe more legit, there are strong cases of sex work, even at our local strip club. I used to get a spray tan once in a while, and she used to be a stripper. So I'm standing and butt naked in front of her. So naturally, I'm like, well, let's talk about it. Oh, so you used to be a stripper. What was that like? And I asked her about sex trafficking, and she said, absolutely. There was a group of girls that would be in a line and they would be paraded through like a back room, and we, the strippers, were not allowed to make eye contact with them. How sketchy is that? And that's like a legal strip club in just a normal town in Florida. So, how do you prevent organized crime from getting a foothold in such a large brothel like the one that you're in?
So we are actually kind of lucky because, as you said, we are really big and we are super official. So there is somebody who wants to traffic anyone, they will not do it in such a big club as we are. I know that if there is something like this happening, the people usually target the smaller clubs because it's much easier to not have the right documents or to go through their interviews like much more smoother. So part of our interview is a like series of questions like about the trafficking. I can't mention the questions. And it's not the question, are you being trafficked? Because that's useless. But we have our several questions that we ask to see if the person is there because their own will. And we as a managers, most of us, we are psychologists. And like part of our job is to speak on daily basis with all of the girls that work with us. So we are trying to kind of see if there is like anything shady. And I have to knock on the wood. So I've been there like 9 years and I've never experienced the sex trafficking in that manner that somebody passport was taken and they were really forced to go to work. And I'm 100% sure that this still happens and it's horrible. But what I see is a boyfriend situation. And this is actually something that it's like being also recognized in academia, which I think it's really good. So they call it like Romeo pimps. And it's a situation when the boyfriend like doesn't force the girl to go to work. She does this voluntarily, and he's the one who is handling the money. And as I mentioned, the girl, after 12 years, she ended up with 2,000 euros. And all the time, I tell the girls, look, you need to handle your own money. So, because the police, they often come to us every like 2-3 months, just like to check up, to speak with the girls and those kind of stuff. And we spoke about this with them. And they were like, even for us as a police, like, this is really hard to do anything about that because the girl, she did everything voluntarily. So there was like no single thing that would show us that he forced her to do any of this. And that's why it's so hard for the police to kind of like prosecute it. I have no idea what is like happening in their homes. But when I hear that the girl is having a boyfriend, I'm always like, just make sure that the money are yours. And often I'm the bad one, but I don't care about being the bad one because I think that the money is theirs and like they are the one who earn it. I'm always trying to warn them, but this is the only thing that I can do about that. I mean, the only thing that I can do is kind of like educate them and tell them, look, I saw this because of my 9 years here. So I'm just like trying to warn you, maybe just make sure the money is yours.
Yeah, that's tricky. Even Layla Kelly, who we just mentioned, it was her husband's idea for her to do porn. And so, I mean, you don't know what happens behind closed doors. He quit his job. They worked together full time in the industry. I guess if there's a lesson here, aside from communicating with your partner, it's also being honest with yourself about what you want and the situation that you're in. But man, when sex gets involved, it does get tricky. I want to wrap up by asking you what you see as the future of sex work, because in preparation for our interview, I was reading about different brothels and my mind was blown because all I know being in the US is that one county in Nevada that has a legal brothel. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos about it. It looks like you would expect a brothel to look like from an American point of view, like kind of dingy. I feel like I could smell the dusty, musty carpet through the video. And even Hugh Hefner's mansion, the Playboy Mansion, I know people that have toured the mansion, they were like, it was run down, like it smelled musty. It really wasn't very nice. But as I'm reading about brothels, they've got restaurants and spas and bars and like a cocktail lounge and all this stuff. I've also read about future brothels that have sex robots. So, oh my gosh, there's like so much there. What do you see as the future of brothels? What's your hope?
A lot of the people kind of expect that OnlyFans and AI will kind of replace sex workers. And I don't think it will because these are like different services. So I still think that there will be a need in the future for this human connection. As I told you, it's like a lot of the people, they just come in and they want to feel like the human sitting in front of them. What I would really love to see is sex work being decriminalized or legalized. I don't think it's going to happen because some of the governments, they are trying to push the sex work to illegality again, or if not the sex work, like the sex workers itself, the clients, which is also dangerous. So I don't think this is going to happen. I think it will get like a bit more prudish, which is not a good thing. For example, in the Amsterdam, so the brothels, they've been part of the city for so many years. And right now, the current government, they are trying to push them away from the city center, and they are like trying to push this project for like building one big brothel outside of the city and just to relocate everything there so we can live like our very peaceful, very normal lives inside of the city, and like this type of the industry will be outside and we don't need to look on this. And I just think this is stupid and it shouldn't be happening. This is the reason why I decided to speak about the things that I do on social media, because I'm not like naive, like I don't think I'm going to change the world. But at least if one person will see this and will change their mind, or at least will start to think about sex work in more like positive way, then I'm like, it's all good.
Yeah, I really enjoy your Instagram account because it shows the human side of something that we just so often in society put a giant blanket of evil, I guess. We're like, oh, that's a big no-no. We can't even think about those people as people. But with the stories that you tell about the connection, like the plumber and the one spouse on Monday and the other spouse on Friday, and never the two shall meet, it's really a story about society that's no different than any of us. And that's what I find so appealing. Now, I know you have a lot of audience members for Instagram and TikTok and OnlyFans that find other parts of what you're doing more interesting. And it is, all of it's good. So, actually, why don't you shout those out now? Where can people keep in touch with the stories that are going on with the brothel and with you?
So the main thing is the Instagram, which is Catherine underscore the underscore Noire. And I need to keep this Instagram PG-13. So most of these stories that I share unfiltered, they are on my OnlyFans, which is also Catherine the Noir.
I will link all of those in the show notes. And thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. This has been a really fun conversation.
Thank you. It was amazing.